When I was in high school, 3 friends and I went camping out of state for fun. We traveled from Houston to Hot Springs, Arkansas, where we camped close. We slept in a motel the night before entering the national forest to pitch up tent. We found a decent place quickly and set up quickly. We joked about Bigfoot and an axe murderer chasing us. This was our first solo camping trip and a lovely graduation excursion. We had lots of beer, so everything was great. Later that night, after cooking some fish we bought in town, my stomach and my companions were upset. I almost wonder if we got food poisoning. It ruined the drinking game, so we spent the night laying low and suffering around the campfire before turning in. After nightfall, we each had 2 tents. I don't recall when we fell asleep between all the fart sounds and jokes. Later, I woke up needing to piss severely. Everyone was asleep, so I left my sleeping bag to use the bathroom. Unzipping my tent, I left. Our fire was barely burning, just embers. I recall the little brightness it gave out against the black sky. I grabbed my flashlight from my rucksack and pissed outside camp. Beautiful June night, chilly, fresh air, silent but extremely human. Great. As I pissed 100 feet from our tents beside a tree, I felt like I was being watched. This made me uneasy, like when we discussed a cycle with an axe murder. Waiting in the woods for me to leave camp far enough. As I was finished peeing and zipping my trousers, I saw 2 blazing red eyes looking at me. I froze as whatever it was approached me. I knew it was heavy because I heard the limbs splitting and shattering. Each stride was a hefty thud. I was so afraid, since the eyeballs were high up, that I raced back to the tent and hid in my sleeping bag. The next day was typical. Nobody had noticed or said anything about last night, even though I was so afraid I could have thrown up. I tried to play everything off and appear normal so they wouldn't know what was coming at me and visiting our camp. Knowing that item was out there kept me from drinking fast forward throughout the previous 5 years, I think. Dogmen love Oklahoma. Apparently, I've read other people's interactions and experiences that are identical to what I encountered that night. Consider, I went fishing and camping alone at Devil's Lake, Wisconsin, in 2016. Devil's Lake is beautiful, with fishing, camping, and other attractions. Lake is surrounded by heavy trees. It would be a fantastic relaxation following a busy few weeks. Just relax and don't think. Something stalked me while camping, and it wasn't a mountain lion or a bear. It's large, maybe a big cat. I don't remember when I arrived at the lake and set up tent. The woods were silent. I felt watched. I peered around but saw nothing. This feeling lasted until nightfall, when I built a fire. After dark, I'd be sitting by my campfire and hear shuffling, panting, and snarling. I was afraid, but I wouldn't leave my peaceful campsite. At some point in the night, the noises stopped, yet it was still unnaturally quiet. Even bugs were quiet. I crawled into my tent. I'd be sleeping there and hear a woman weeping 100 feet away. Or, given I'm on a lake, sound can travel strangely, but it was incomprehensible. Hearing what seemed like a lady crying and sobbing kept me awake. I wouldn't go out in the dark with a handgun and flashlight. The noises surrounded my tent all night. I didn't sleep much but recall waking up to dawn. I ultimately fell asleep. When I woke up, I had the craziest camping experience. Blood was odorous. I checked whether it was me. No, I didn't cut myself, but I panicked. I promptly got up and practically vomited stroman around my camp. Outside my camp, little animals were butchered. They were ripped apart. I spotted rabbits, squirrels, perhaps a raccoon, possum, and fox. Blood and intestines were everywhere. I was confused. I don't know if I was in a satanic ritual, but I wasn't having it. I left. I never asked why anything was named devil. Now I know why there's something at the lake. Not sure whether it's a creature. I'll never go back to that lake, and if you're clever, you will too. I didn't anticipate anything to happen. Steve and I attended his friend's yearly CB gathering in Crittenden, Kentucky. We're 45 minutes away. October was warm. The 54-acre park has a playground, baseball pitch with lights, and basketball court. Picnic area features 5 shelters. 2 multifunctional facilities, a horse ring with a barn and stadium. I love nature, so giving people space appealed to me. I brought some joints to relieve discomfort and relax. People attended the noon to whenever party. I felt like a fool for bringing cupcakes. Not a terrible first impression that Steve's pal was diabetic and hated sweets. After eating, I walked around because Steve knew most of the individuals. The picnic was in front. I chose to examine Smoke's other side. I took random phone photos. I enjoy photography. I was drawn to the trees beyond the ball field. I knew I had to depart when goosebumps covered my arms. As powerful as the draw was, I didn't feel wicked or scary. I suspected something. I stopped walking to check my phone. I ended up near a tree that attracted my attention, so I shot a few photographs and left. Even though I still felt compelled to go where I was being pushed, later that night when we got home I glanced at my grayscale photos because they looked fantastic. So, I saw the tree in my grayscale photo. I showed it to Steve, who felt it was great since it had a spirit. Then inquired about the bush. I saw eyeballs in the location I was being pushed to. I got goosebumps when I believed my shot captured a hellhound. My buddy Teresa, who was into UFOs, Bigfoot, etc., was skeptical when I showed her my photos. When I informed her where I took my photos, she told me it wasn't a hellhound but a dogman. I'm a believer with an open mind who has traveled much. She remarked I'm lucky it didn't follow me home. I didn't feel intimidated, though. My folks had an Oklahoma farm. I lived there before college and establishing a family. I never moved back, but my parents never left. I don't know what happened to the monster we used to see there. We had cattle like any farm, but I don't recall things turning eerie until I was 13. My parents covered my windows at night to keep out pests and rodents. Even as a child, I felt that was unusual. Looking back, I assume my parents knew about this and tried to keep me from seeing it as long as possible. Looking out my window, you can see our property and vast pasture. We're surrounded by forests, but we have plenty of freedom to wander and for animals to roam. Never previously has this happened to our livestock. Some mornings, our piglets were torn apart. It seems a bear attacked and half ate one of our horses. So we were looking for bear, but the pigs didn't make sense. They weren't eaten, but ripped up and left in a gory mess. As a child, I often saw my father pacing by the front entrance with his shotgun ready to use, as if he was waiting for something. As a youngster, Dad told me a bear killed our animals, but I soon learned it wasn't true. One night I was sleeping when I heard a pig cry so loudly that it woke me up and sent my father outdoors. I was 13 at the time and figured I was old enough and brave enough to help him take down whatever animal was hurting our pigs, be it a bear or not. I jumped out of bed and as I'm running towards the front door, I hear my dad's shotgun go off. I quickly go look outside and see this hideous creature with glowing yellow eyes, long pointed ears, and a muzzle chasing my dad. The thing was chasing him standing on two legs. My dad is a strong guy, but I've never seen him so afraid and pale. I can't imagine keeping youngsters from watching a monster harming sheep. He urged me to go to my bedroom immediately, so I locked the windows and doors. I heard a monster methodically casing our house, looking for the weakest window or entrance to enter. It scratched the house with its claws. It must have left us alone since I no longer heard it. The next day, as my dad checked on the pigs, I saw big scratch marks on our house. Someone dragged a sharpened rake across the side. My dad wouldn't talk about it, but I witnessed how the monster impacted him. It made me a loner for years, not knowing where this nightmare-inducing creature was hiding. It might have easily broken into our house and killed us all. As I grew older and moved away, it seemed to try to scare us. No one knew. They're not ready for it. My dad keeps his shotgun at the front entrance because he's never sure when this may happen again. I don't believe in fairy tales, monsters, or Bigfoot, yet something strange happened to me. This happened outside Danbury, Wisconsin. This happened in the spring while my husband and I were traveling down an old logging road to capture photos. My spouse was more wood-savvy than I. I did photography. I wanted to go deeper, therefore I adored capturing shots in the woods. It was my favorite time of year to capture shots on this logging route. This enormous black animal charges our jeep. We assumed it was an agitated black bear at first, but its front legs were too big for its body and it looked more like a hyena than a black bear. Whatever it was swift and got up to our jeep quickly. We panicked. Lord knows what the beast pursuing our jeep will do. My husband was traveling so fast he slammed on the brakes and pulled off the finest Hollywood Drive turnaround you've ever seen on a dirt road. As we stopped, this creature was standing in the road confronting us. We could easily see its face from 30 feet away since it was on all fours in the road. It resembled a wolf-hyena hybrid. It scowled at us and approached our parked car. My husband Florida died and we left. We both checked the rear-view mirror and it was in the same spot. It watched us depart. Maybe he wanted to scare us away. My buddies wondered why I didn't snap photographs when I had the chance. My camera and lenses were in the Jeep's backseat. I don't carry my camera when driving. I wish I had proof. We're considerably more cautious now. I've never discussed this incident before. I was afraid to share my experience, but I decided it was for the best. Letting things go is the greatest way to find peace of mind, right? I hope so. I was on Beach Drive one evening. Both sides of this route along Rock Creek are marshy. Nighttime fog makes driving difficult. This stinks. I had recently bought a decent vehicle in 2002. I'm driving in the dark when I see a huge head peeking out of the brush, peering across the road. I thought, what? It was the biggest wolf head I've ever seen, and its eyes were burning amber. I thought it may be phony, so I slowed down to check out my driver's side window. That's when the creature walked out of the brush and sneered at me. This two-legged creature was grinning at me like it was coming for me. I've never seen a more demonic-looking animal. This monster looked like a werewolf. It possessed claw-like hands. I panicked and sped up. I didn't destroy my truck. I immediately flew home. That night was so bad I still have dreams about it. I haven't drove Beach Drive in a while, but the last few times it's been strange knowing that something lives there. In my 20s, I relocated from southern to northeast Texas. I've encountered wild creatures like pigs, but never a wolf. I started helping out at a ranch. I once felt like I was being watched while piling hay in a field. I looked around but saw no one, so I kept working. I kept working and looked over to a tree line 50 feet distant and couldn't believe what I saw. Largest black hound I'd ever seen was watching me shift hay bales. It was sitting on its back with its front arms and paws stretched, like a dog. It had penetrating amber eyes and was looking at me. I was scared, but convinced myself it was simply a big dog. The ranch owner knew about it, and didn't want to talk about it. He knew about this beast, and these things but wouldn't share. He instructed me to disregard it. I did chores around the property and it never failed sometimes. This same black wolf would watch me work like it was studying me, learning whatever it could. It made me uneasy. I was confused. In one portion of the land, the fence got within 10 feet of the wood line and then stretched back out. One of his horses escaped and destroyed the fence. I was the lone ranch hand. I asked the owner what to do. He appeared frightened and told me not to worry. His own fix. You can't get injured. He confused me. When I mentioned the black wolf, he changed the subject, which upset me. I sensed trouble. Since I started seeing this dog around, animals went nuts. Animals disappeared and reappeared, horses escaped, and cattle was found dead and devoured. I soon found another employment. I'll never forget that Texas ranch or that wolf. Cheers. If you liked this video, subscribe and enable notifications, so you'll know when I post new videos.